Tonight, somewhere, you're going to have a drink. Maybe a beer with dinner, maybe a glass of wine you barely think about. You'll pour it, taste it, and move on with your evening without a single thought about where that impulse actually came from. But the first time a living creature felt what you're about to feel wasn't a human moment at all. It happened millions of years before anything resembling a person existed, on a forest floor, to a creature that had no idea what it was discovering. Picture it. Somewhere in the forests of what's now Africa, roughly 10 million years ago, a small primate moves through the undergrowth, following a scent it can't name but instinctively trusts. Fruit has fallen from the canopy above and sat on the ground for days, skin splitting, sugars breaking down as wild yeast gets inside and starts converting them into alcohol. The primate isn't looking for that. It's looking for calories, the densest, most efficient meal available in a world where finding enough food was the difference between surviving the week and not. It picks up the fruit. It eats.
And something happens that had never happened to this creature before. A faint, unfamiliar warmth spreads through its body. Its movements loosen slightly. Whatever mattered a moment ago matters a little less right now. The primate has no framework for what's occurring. It doesn't know the word alcohol, doesn't know fermentation, doesn't know it's the first documented pull of ethanol on a primate nervous system built millions of years before anything called Homo sapiens would exist. All it knows is that this piece of fruit felt different than the others, and that feeling is worth remembering. This is the moment biologist Robert Dudley built an entire hypothesis around in 2014, something he called the drunken monkey hypothesis. His argument is straightforward and a little unsettling. Primates that could detect and pursue the scent of fermenting fruit had a real survival advantage, because overripe, alcohol-laced fruit is calorically richer and easier to digest than fruit still hanging on the branch. Evolution didn't select for creatures that enjoyed alcohol by accident. It selected for creatures whose brains rewarded them for finding it, because finding it meant finding food.
There's a detail in the biology here that makes this feel less like a quirky evolutionary footnote and more like something load-bearing. Humans carry a specific genetic mutation in an enzyme called ADH4, alcohol dehydrogenase, that appeared in our lineage roughly 10 million years ago, right around the same window Dudley points to for that first fermented fruit encounter. This mutation made our ancestors 40 times more efficient at metabolizing ethanol than earlier primates. That's not a small tweak. That's the kind of change natural selection only locks in when it's solving a real, recurring problem. Something in that environment made the ability to process alcohol efficiently matter enough to spread through an entire population and stay there for 10 million years, showing up unchanged in every human alive today. And it wasn't just our specific lineage. Researchers have found that a range of fruit-eating mammals, not just primates, show behavioral attraction to fermenting fruit, from elephants moving toward the smell of rotting marula fruit to fruit bats that appear to seek out the ripest, most fermented options available. The pull toward alcohol-laced food isn't a strange human glitch. It's a pattern that shows up wherever a species evolved to rely heavily on fruit as a food source, which suggests the underlying mechanism is older and broader than any single species, humans included.
Here's the part that should sit with you for a second. That reward circuitry never went away. It got inherited generation after generation, primate species after primate species, all the way down an evolutionary line that eventually produced us. By the time anything recognizable as a human being existed, the wiring was already ancient. We didn't invent the desire for alcohol. We were born already carrying it, the same way we're born already able to recognize a face or flinch from a loud noise. The taste for it came first. The species came after. So there's this enormous gap, millions of years, between that first primate encountering fermented fruit by accident and the first human being who deliberately, intentionally made alcohol on purpose. For most of that gap, the pattern stayed the same as it started. Opportunistic, accidental, whatever fruit happened to be rotting nearby.
Nobody was brewing anything. Nobody was choosing this. It was simply there, sometimes, and bodies already wired to like it took advantage when it was. Now picture a different scene, tens of thousands of years ago instead of 10 million. A small group of early Homo sapiens sits near a shelter, working through the last of a food store, wild grain gathered by hand because agriculture doesn't exist yet. Some of that grain got wet. It sat, forgotten, in a container for longer than intended. Days pass. Wild yeast, the same organism that's been doing this to fruit since before humans existed, finds its way into the mixture. It ferments.
Someone tastes it, probably out of necessity rather than curiosity, unwilling to waste food that already looked wrong. It wouldn't have tasted anything like modern alcohol. Sour, slightly fizzy from the fermentation gases, thick with unfiltered grains still suspended in it, closer to a rough porridge than a drink. There would have been no ceremony to it, no ritual, just a person deciding that spoiled-looking food was still worth trying rather than throwing it away. And there it is again, that same faint warmth, the same loosening, the reward circuitry inherited from an ancestor this person couldn't have imagined, activating exactly the way it always had. But this time is different in one crucial way. This person has language. This person has memory that can be shared deliberately with other people. This person can look at what just happened and think, I want that again, and then tell someone else how to make it happen too.
There's something else this explains, something that seems unrelated until you trace it back. That ADH4 mutation didn't just make our ancestors better at processing alcohol, it also determined how badly things go when we overdo it. The same enzyme pathway responsible for that pleasant warmth is responsible for the unpleasant aftermath the next morning. The mismatch between how efficiently your body processes a moderate amount versus how poorly it handles an excess your primate ancestors would rarely have encountered in the wild, where fermented fruit was a limited seasonal resource rather than something available at any hour, in any quantity, whenever you wanted it. The reward system is 10 million years old. The environment offering unlimited access to what it rewards is only a few centuries old at most. That mismatch, evolution built for scarcity, now operating in a world of abundance, might be the real story hiding underneath the one everybody already knows.
That's the actual hinge point, the moment the story shifts from something that happened to a species to something a species started doing on purpose. The primate on the forest floor could only stumble into the feeling. The early human could recreate it, could remember which grain, which container, how long it sat, and try it again next season, slightly more deliberately each time. What started as an accident millions of years earlier became, within a single human lifetime of trial and error, an intention. So here's the full picture. 10 million years ago, a primate ate a piece of rotting fruit because it needed calories, and its brain rewarded that decision so strongly, the preference got written into the genetic line that eventually became us. For most of the millions of years between then and now, that reward sat dormant, waiting for opportunity rather than being chased. Then, sometime in the last several thousand years, a human being with language and memory looked at an accident and decided to repeat it on purpose. And the moment fermentation stopped being something that happened to us and became something we did. You weren't there for either moment. Neither was anyone you'll ever meet. But every time you pour a drink tonight, without thinking about it, without any ceremony at all, you're activating a reward system that predates your species by millions of years, and a deliberate human tradition that predates written history. The primate on the forest floor didn't know what it had found. The first human to brew on purpose didn't know how far the habit would travel. And you, tonight, mostly won't think about either of them. But the feeling you're chasing is the same one they were, passed down through a line so long it stopped being about a species and started being about something older than any of us, a taste that found us before we ever had a name for it.